Pandavas went through, even though Krishna was their companion. Draupadi was practically the goddess of fortune. Arjuna, the most expert bowman. Bhima, the most expert with the club. Yet, apparently, they suffered. They went through so many ordeals. Bhishma was amazed by this, incredulous, to the point of tears, thinking what the Pandavas went through. The other thing that amazed Bhishma was, although he's known as the greatest brahmachari, because as a Kshatriya he took the Devamrita, the great vow to be a brahmachari, which Kshatriyas certainly don't do. Yet, he thought, although I have such renown, such fame for my brahmacharya, when I think of Krishna in the forest with all those girls, and he did not succumb to any material contamination, I'm amazed. That's Bhishma days, I know. In this way, he's paying tribute to Krishna's nirmala existence, beyond any material influence, spotless. And the proof, the test is in the forest in the middle of the night with the most beautiful women, young girls in existence, more beautiful than even the women of the heavenly planets. So again, back to the point of ordeals in material existence. And what is the proof that we have allies? We have great personalities whose only purpose is just to meditate on the welfare of conditioned souls suffering in this world. The proof is that we go through the ordeals. We pass over. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you are conscious of Him and perform your activities for His pleasure, you'll pass over all the obstacles of conditional life by His grace. So there are obstacles. Material existence means obstacle. Sometimes we have this fairy tale dream that material existence is actually basically peaceful and happy, but we just don't know how to materially be materially peaceful and happy. But inherently, material existence is problematic. So the miracle is how a devotee goes through the inherently problematic material existence and advances in Krishna consciousness. That's the miracle. We read about Dhruva Maharaj, his planet, Dhruvaloka. All the planets of the 7 saintly sages circumambulate the pole star. Why did that happen? Because the Lord wanted to glorify his devotee Dhruva, who indeed went through so many ordeals. What was so intense about what Dhruva had to put up with? He was the son of Maharaj Uttamapad. He was living an opulent palace life opulence beyond what we can imagine today. But then again, obstacles are relative to the person who's going through those obstacles. But Dhruva was a prince, a Kshatriya. Therefore, it was an extraordinary obstacle for him to be insulted by his father in the presence of his brother, to be pushed off his father's lap because Dhruva wasn't born from the right wife. This was an extraordinary impediment, an obstacle for Dhruva. He went to his mother, crying, his mother had already heard through the palace grapevine that what had happened, how Dhruva had been insulted, how Shruji had told Dhruva, your misfortune is that you weren't born from my womb. If you're lucky, here's what you do. I'll give you your program. You perform austerities for hundreds of births, and you may then, after that, get a chance to be born in my womb. So we may say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. But that's not the way Dhruva was wired. And even Narada Muni, who would become his guru, commented about this. Just see the pride of Kshatriyas. A 5-year-old boy is taking so seriously these insults that he's ready to live in the forest and perform severe austerities and penances just to get a kingdom greater than anyone in his illustrious family line. Just see how intense that pride is. So Narada Muni told him, just be detached. Happiness and distress, fame, infamy, honor, dishonor, just go home. And what did Dhruva tell him? You may be indicating to me that what I've experienced is not an obstacle. And I appreciate your absolute instruction. But let's consider my relative situation. I'm a Kshatriya. I've been insulted. I cannot turn the other cheek. I cannot just forget it all. I have to get the better kingdom than anyone in my family line that will put them all in their place. Being the expert guru, Narada Muni took that desire and arranged for its purification. He transformed Dhruva's determination for material super excellence. Narada Muni transformed that into a result that gave spiritual perfection. That is the service of the spiritual master. You may come in the door with one kind of motive, but if you actually consent to perform bhakti under guidance, your motivations become transformed. Srila Prabhupada once gave a very wonderful definition of management. Very different from what you might read in a corporate management book. I don't even know if it's in the ISKCON management manual. Management means to create a situation in which people who have no interest in Krishna become interested in Krishna. That is management. Very interesting definition. Create a situation in which people who originally have no interest in Krishna, don't know anything about Krishna, couldn't care about Krishna, due to a managemental arrangement, they become interested in Krishna. That is management. Narada Muni did that with Dhruva. Of course, Dhruva also had his mother who advised him, you're running to me because you've been insulted by your father's other wife. You're coming to me because you want maternal consolation, maternal affection. But there's someone who is more affectionate than millions of mothers like me. You turn to that person, and your desires will be fulfilled. How to get a better kingdom, how to achieve material super excellence. And as you know, Dhruva asked, where do I go to find such a person? And his mother told him, go to the forest. I've heard, in her simplicity, she said, I've heard that great saints and sages go to the forest to find Vishnu. Dhruva was gone. So Narada Muni was astonished. This boy has such determination. How are we going to transfer his motivation? He tested Dhruva. 5-year-old boy in the forest, a dangerous place. You should go home. Come back when you're older. And then, as we said, he gave Dhruva some Brahminical advice, and Dhruva respectfully declined. It's not for me. Be detached. That's Brahmana stuff. I'm a Kshatriya. I have to counteract this insult to my prestige. So then, Narada Muni gave him a process of bhakti, which Dhruva Maharaj followed so diligently. So the point is actually more than Dhruva's material desire for a greater kingdom than anyone in his extraordinary family line. More impactful is the fact that he took guidance and followed it so diligently. In this way, we can see that regardless of our faulty motivations, if we take to the process of bhakti under guidance, miracles can happen. And Narada Muni was so proud of Dhruva. After Dhruva went back to Godhead, Narada went to the assembly where the Prachetas were gathered. He's playing his veena, and he made the proclamations. Anyone who hears this history of Dhruva anyone who hears of Dhruva's qualities, they'll also attain the qualities of Dhruva. When Dhruva Maharaj boarded the Vaikuntha aircraft, the fourth canto describes that he went beyond the Saptarishi, the 7 planetary systems of the great sages. And that can only be done to get beyond those systems and out of the material universe can only be done if your vehicle is piloted by Vaikuntha, a Vaikuntha air crew. So we get that celestial, universal, cosmic information. Dhruva had the right crew on his airplane. Why is it that all these planets are orbiting the pole star? It's not some kind of material reason. Well, that's just the way it is. Ultimately, everything is personal. There's a personal reason why things are the way they are. Krishna is the supreme artist. And that artistry is manifest even in the material world. So because of Dhruva's bhakti, the Lord wants to glorify his devotee. So he arranges that the planets circumambulate the pole star with great speed and force, just to indicate the glories of Dhruva's devotion. In fact, the Shastra says, Bhagavatam says that Dhruva's devotion conquered the unconquerable Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that conquest began with a little boy who wanted simply a greater kingdom than anyone in his family. Yet, by the expert guidance of Narada Muni, Dhruva, although starting with that desire, he conquered the unconquerable Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is how important guidance is. And Krishna wants to show that. Therefore, all the planets orbit the pole star. To accept that there's a personal reason at the root of everything certainly is a challenge to current materialistic understanding. Everything should be by chance, random arrangement. Actually, there's not even free will. Our possession of free will is an illusion. Contrast that with the Lord's personal arranging that all the planets orbit the pole star. Contrast that with great personalities like the Saptarishi, the 7 great sages, are always thinking of the well-being of the inhabitants of the universe. Lord Kapila Dev is in samadhi, in meditation. After he left home, he left his mother, Devahuti. He then first went north to the Himalayas, and then he came down the Ganga to the mouth of the Ganga, and there he is today in Samadhi, thinking of the benefit of conditioned souls. We're being introduced to a cosmic reality that's very different from what a mundane presentation will tell us. How do we unlock the glories of such a universe in which we have personalities who are cheering us on, who are trying to encourage us? The more our vision becomes spiritual, the more we'll be able to see all these spiritual advantages. But if our vision remains material, and we just look at the material obstacles, the material setbacks, the blossoming and waning of the material body, the blossoming and waning of the economy, the blossoming and waning of the political system, or the American Empire, or the British Empire, or the Soviet Empire, as long as our vision is just fixed on that, we'll not be able to see what we have going for us, and how, in spite of all material ordeals, devotees indeed always succeed. They always come out victorious if they perform bhakti under guidance. Sometimes the Lord does visit Dhruva's planet. Sanatana Goswami tells us that when Narada Muni was glorifying Indra as being the greatest devotee, Indra said, wait a minute, let's look at the cosmological facts. The Lord is not always on my heavenly planet. Sometimes he's on the pole star. Sometimes he's in the ocean of milk. How can you say that I'm so favored? The Lord goes wherever he likes. He becomes visible wherever he wants. Right now he's in Dwarka, but he doesn't even stay in Dwarka all the time. Sometimes he goes to Vrindavan, sometimes he goes to Hastinapur to see the Pandavas. So why are you putting so much glorification on me? In this way, Indra is showing that a devotee has this quality of being transcendently dissatisfied. I'm not doing enough. My service is so tiny. Look at all the other devotees. They're doing so much better. It appears, Sanatana Goswami explains this attitude of the devotee. The devotee thinks, it appears that I have Krishna's mercy. So I can understand your thinking that, due to the appearance that I have Krishna's mercy. But actually, if you think deeply, you'll easily see that the other devotees have more mercy than I do. So therefore, why are you speaking to me like this? Indra told Narada Muni, it's because you're a Gandharva. Gandharvas are very tricky. Therefore, you're speaking words that are really like this. But consider the facts. Look at what life is like on this topmost heavenly planet. Look what I have to go through. Often we demigods are chased out of our abodes. The demons take over, and we have to hide on earth, disguised as sannyasis. Maybe that's what we really are. That's it. Vananda Swami, the sannyas minister. Maybe that's what we really are. They were demigods in disguise. Hiding on earth due to being kicked out of the heavenly planets. But he just spoke like that. How can you glorify me? Look where I live. Look what happens in my neighborhood. We get kicked out. We have to become invisible. We have to hide as sannyasis on earth. And we are in anxiety. What's the proof of our anxiety? It's not just because of the demons taking over the heavenly planets, but Krishna himself puts us in anxiety. He got the power to Dwarka, in spite of my protests. So can you glorify me as a great devotee? I was in anxiety because of that. And if you think that Krishna went through a great sacrifice, a great effort to rescue the heavenly planets from demons like Bali Maharaj, he didn't even defeat Bali Maharaj like a Kshatriya in a decisive heroic victory. He came as a little Brahmana boy and cheated him. So how can you say that the Lord has favored me as a great devotee? He just kind of weaseled the heavenly planets back, weaseled them out of Bali Maharaj. If I was a great devotee, the Lord would have made a great show of conquering Bali Maharaj in a fantastic military victory. He didn't do that for me. So how can you say I'm such a great devotee? So then the question is, who is the great devotee? Where to find the Supreme Lord? Because Indra told Narada, he's sometimes on Dhruva's planet, he's sometimes in the ocean of milk. Right now he's in Dwarka, but he doesn't really stay there all the time. How can Krishna be present before one's eyes? Even we ourselves, we wonder, can we actually tell people that we're seeing Krishna? Last time I was here, Friday, Saturday, someone on Wasik Avenue stopped me. Maharaj, I want you to tell the truth. Just tell the truth now. You're supposed to be a senior Vaishnava. Tell the truth. Have you seen Krishna? Sure, you can see Krishna too. No, come on, Maharaj. Tell the truth. Have you seen Krishna? I said, sure, you can also see. In other words, I wasn't giving him the answer that he wanted. I was supposed to admit, how much of a neophyte I am, and I've never seen Krishna, and then he would be satisfied. Of course, we freely admit our neophyte status, but the fact is, even a neophyte has seen Krishna. And anyone can see Krishna. Krishna's there as Shri Rukmini Dwarkesh. Krishna's there as Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna is there as his holy name. And who will deny it? That Krishna is there as prasad. when it's time for prasad, are there any doubters? So everyone can see Krishna. It's just that there are different levels of intensity in seeing Krishna according to one's spiritual advancement. Just like, look at the situation with Dhruva Maharaj. He was seeing, when his meditation under the direction of Narada Muni, his mantra chanting of Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, when that was reaching perfection, Dhruva saw the Lord in his heart, and he was meditating on the beautiful form of the Lord in his heart. And then, that Lord in the heart disappeared, and Dhruva was troubled and disturbed, and he opened his eyes, and he saw the Lord outside him. So in other words, the Acharyas point out there was a distinction in his seeing Krishna. He was seeing Krishna internally, but he wasn't seeing Krishna externally. But when he got the mercy of the Lord, when the Lord gave him the full dose of mercy, he was able to see the Lord, quote-unquote, physically outside. But still, he was seeing the Lord. But it's just a question of more intense vision. So the Acharyas say that Dhruva's seeing the Lord in the heart. There was a distinction between internal and external seeing. A distinction that Krishna's dearest devotees, like the residents of Vrindavan, they didn't have that distinction. They were always seeing Krishna. Even when their separation from Krishna, their feelings of separation become so intense that Krishna physically manifests before their vision because of their bhava. Their internal bhava causes the Lord to appear before their eyes, even though they're in a state of separation. This is the mystery of viraha bhav. They got physical darshan in separation because of their intense feelings of separation. So therefore, for example, Sanatana Goswami explains that Krishna sometimes is thinking, what can I do? How can I pacify and soothe the residents of Vrindavan? Even if they see me again, it won't solve the problem. It's like a hungry person who has fasted for a long time. You can't just give them a banquet. They have to carefully start eating again. Otherwise, their system becomes very disturbed, and it may be fatal for them if they just start gobbling down food after weeks of fasting. So similarly, I have to be careful how I deal with the Brijbasis. If I suddenly appear to them, it'll be too much shock for their system. I have to gradually manifest my association with them so they can properly digest my appearance for them. But then Krishna says, I don't have actually the time for that long process. I have many things to do. So, in other words, if I let them see me, there's a problem. If I don't let them see me, there's a problem. So then, the Acharyas give another example. What about the queens of Dwarka? This is the 90th chapter of Bhagavatam. You'll read it also in the Krishna book, of course. The queens of Dwarka had just finished enjoying water sports with the Lord, with Dwarkadish. And yet they were in anxiety. Even though they had Dwarkadish association, the queens of Dwarka were in anxiety of separation, even though he was there. And in this way, the 10th canto ends with this very sweet note that even devotees, dear devotees of the Lord, his consorts who had this association, simultaneously they're feeling the anxiety of the impending separation. The Lord could go at any moment. And those feelings of separation produced the vision, the physical appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, nothing compares to the cowherd damsels of Vrindavan for being able to produce Krishna's physical presence just by their viraha bhava. So these are the different levels of intensity in seeing Krishna. And everyone, even a newcomer to bhakti can say, I'm seeing Krishna. But that doesn't mean that you're claiming to see Krishna as Dhruva Maharaj did or as the gopis in Vrindavan did, but still. As Prabhupada explained, if the drunkard, while drinking wine, thinks Krishna is the taste of water in the wine, he's experiencing Krishna. You can't deny that. They're just different levels of intensity in love. I'll stop there and ask any questions. Yes.
So towards the beginning of your lecture, you were mentioning how the world is full of obstacles. That's not the big mystery. The mystery is how the devotees pass over the obstacles. But it also seems like non-devotees pass over obstacles to win the World Cup or win the election or become successful in business after so many obstacles. So what's the difference between the devotees overcoming or surpassing the obstacles, materialists doing the same?
A materialist is so-called victorious over an obstacle, passes through an obstacle only to confront another obstacle. Because they're living in an obstacle course. obstacle is the name of the game. But they get so happy, we won the World Cup, or we did this or we did that. The economy is better now. Was it one famous CEO in the USA, Jack Welch of General Electric? He's like an acharya for CEOs. And he said, your corporation is nothing until it's had a near-death experience and you've stormed back. You haven't done anything. You don't know anything about business. So all his shishas, all his disciples, they worship such statements. Okay, we're having a tough time right now with our corporation, but as the Acharya has said, when we come through this, that's the real victory. There's only apparent victory in material life. And actually, even from a material point of view, you can easily see that. For example, look at the American Civil War, in which the North won. On paper, you can say there was a victor and a loser, but when you look at the facts, it was complete devastation. More Americans died in the Civil War than in all the world wars. 600,000 Americans died in the Civil War. And the problems didn't end. The problems just manifested another way. Look at World War II, the great Allied victory. If you know anything about the history of Europe, you see the civilians in Europe were in a totally hellish situation. Starving, their cities were destroyed. So where is the so-called victory? Whether it's a corporate victory, a military victory. Just like in Germany, it's hard for Americans to relate to, but when the Berlin Wall came down, it was such an emotional moment. For me also, because I spent years trying to preach behind enemy curtains in places like East Germany, and so when the Berlin Wall came down, what a victory! From the material point of view, however, what happened 3 years after the Germans were rejoicing that the wall had come down, Germany was reunited. Just a few years later, what are they doing? Total lamentation and anger that we have to take, the West Germans have to take all the economic problems of the East Germans. To the point where the people actually saying, put the wall back up. We got to pay for this stuff. Put it back up. Divide the country again. Our sense gratification is being affected. This is serious business. We didn't know we had to pay for all that stuff. So where's the so-called victory? You get healthy only to die. Any other questions?
Just continuing from Buddha Karma's question. On the other hand, it seems like sometimes even those devotees who are surrendered, they also get the short end of the stick in the ultimate analysis. For example, let's take in Ram Lila. There were scores and scores of Maharatis serving on Ram's side who just got scooped up and gobbled away and out of Ram Lila by Kumbhakarna. And that was the extent of their involvement in the Lila. They came and joined Ram and they got gobbled up, and that's the end of it. So how would we answer those kinds of doubts?
Well, similarly, look at our devotees. From one point of view, we're cannon fodder for Lord Chaitanya. We may think we're great, this and that, but actually we're cannon fodder. Some or other, we connected with Srila Prabhupada, and he made some use out of us. And from a material point of view, though, disease will gobble us up, earthquakes can gobble us up, hurricanes can gobble us up, so many things have happened. But Kontyam Pratijani, Name Bhakta Pranashati. Looking at the situation with spiritual vision, we see a devotee is always victorious. Look at Vritrasura's death. Indra inside Vritrasura's body, because Vritrasura has swallowed him, and Indra's inside with a thunderbolt, and he sawed his way outside. He sawed his way through Vritrasura's body to get out, and then he took the thunderbolt and he began cutting off Vritrasura's head. It took him a year to do that because how thick the muscles were on Vritrasura's neck, and also because, most importantly, because Vritrasura was in samadhi. So therefore his muscles were his rigor mortis, Indra had to take a whole year to cut his head off. But where was Vritrasura? He'd already gone back to Godhead. So Indra was just playing around with a body. Whereas for the soul of Vritrasura, there was complete victory. And Indra knew it. Indra knew. He actually won. He went back to Godhead. And I am here in the material world to enjoy my heavenly kingdom, but it's nothing compared to the glorious victory of Vritrasura. And he's supposed to be a demon, and I'm supposed to be a devotee. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Situated 1,600,000 miles above Jupiter, or 12 million miles above Earth, is the planet Saturn, which passes through one sign of the zodiac in 30 months and covers the entire zodiac circle in 30 Anuvatsaras. This planet is always very inauspicious for the universal situation. Situated 8,800,000 miles above Saturn, or 20,800,000 miles above Earth, are the 7 saintly sages who are always thinking of the well-being of the inhabitants of the universe. They circumambulate the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu, known as Dhruva-loka, the pole star. Purport. Srila Madhvacharya quotes the following verse from the Brahmanda Purana. Lord Vishnu, who is the source of knowledge and transcendental bliss, has assumed the form of Shishumar in the 7th heaven, which is situated in the topmost level of the universe. All the other planets, beginning with the sun, exist under the shelter of this Shishumar planetary system. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 22nd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Orbits of the Planets. Om Yanatiranandasya Yanandana Shalakaya Chakshukha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We hear that the planet Saturn is always very inauspicious for the universal situation. Besides the influence of the material planets, we find that there is the influence of the Krishna planet. Krishna Grahita in the 7th canto when Prahlad Maharaj, his history is given. He's described as being under the influence of a planet, Graha. He's under the influence of the Krishna Graha, the Krishna Loka, supreme planet. And that's what's moving his life. In our tour of the universe in the 5th canto, we get up to Saptarishi, the 7 planetary systems of the 7 saintly sages. And we hear that they're always thinking of the well-being of the inhabitants of the universe. They circumambulate the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu, known as Dhruvaloka, the pole star. It may be hard for us to think that there are persons always thinking of the welfare of all the inhabitants of the universe, and that's their service. We make our tiny efforts to expand the welfare work of Lord Krishna, the supreme welfare work, but other beings far more powerful than us are also making their efforts. There's teamwork. And that teamwork becomes more and more obvious to a devotee as he or she advances. No doubt at first it seems that we're up against impossible odds. A few devotees struggling in an ocean of material existence. As we progress in bhakti, we realize that we do have so much going for us. There are extraordinarily powerful persons on up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead who are simply thinking how to benefit the conditioned souls. For example, 3rd canto states that even right now, Lord Kapila Dev is at the Ganga Saga. He's at the mouth of the Ganga, and he's in Samadhi for the benefit of the conditioned souls. The thought that someone could be in Samadhi just thinking about our benefit, that may seem a bit bewildering, because why is life such a struggle then? If the Saptarishi, the 7 saintly sages, are doing their job, then why do we have to go through so many ordeals? The focus should be not so much on the ordeals, but how amazingly the devotees pass through these ordeals. That is the miracle. Especially in Kali Yuga, everyone is ground up by this ordeal or that ordeal. Yet we see that even in Kali Yuga, in spite of all the material impediments, in spite of all the material ordeals, a devotee can come out on the other side. As Krishna instructs Arjuna to declare it boldly, my devotee is never vanquished. Perhaps when we were young devotees, new devotees, we thought that that meant devotees would never get sick or die. We became a little puzzled. What is this? A devotee has been in a car accident, or a devotee has gotten a terminal illness. As we mature in spiritual life, we realize that the body will go its own way, it has its own problems. The material world will go its own way, it has its problems. But the amazing thing is that in spite of all these transitory comings and goings of happiness and distress, and health and illness and poverty and wealth and fame and infamy. In spite of all that, a devotee's spiritual life goes on. A devotee's devotional service goes on. And the taste for the holy name becomes ever more intriguing and appetizing. That is the victory. And that shows that we do have powerful persons who are pulling for us. Why did Krishna allow the Pandavas to be caught in so many traumatic situations? In fact, you could indeed say it was Krishna's arrangement that they were in such situations. It's because Krishna wanted to glorify the devotional outcomes of devotees. Just see, my devotees can go through all these ordeals of fire and still come out even more glorious and never becoming angry, never accusing, "Oh Krishna, why did you let this happen to us? We've served you so nicely, and then look, this is what we get." But just to teach us a lesson, Krishna put his dear devotees, the Pandavas, through such ordeals that even Bhishma Dev, the foremost general, when he would think about what the Pandavas went through, tears would come to his eyes. That was one of the two things